Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself, Hannah Welsh. Are you ready to empower your life? My guest today will tell you just how she found her own joy, her own motivation to do just that. Hannah Rose Cluley will be telling you about her own journey. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about Hannah. Hannah, for as long as she can remember, there was something always holding her back and she could never figure it out. There was a voice in her head that told her that she was never good enough. Until a massive injury happened to her where she had to go on bed rest and look after herself. Then that calling and healing started. Let me tell you what she did. On the outside, it looked like she had it all together, looking perfectly tall, beautiful, everything in order, but not quite the same, not quite where she needs to be. But now, she could proudly say that she's overcome this little voice telling her that she wasn't good enough. Sounds familiar? So many people go through this pain. Today, many people have that voice in their mind out there telling them, you're not good enough, you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't start that business, you shouldn't get married, you shouldn't do this because you're not good enough. My guest will tell you just how she managed to overcome that voice in her mind that kept telling her that she wasn't good enough to find her joy. Her goal is to heal, as we all deserve to love ourselves enough to invest time and effort into creating a space of empowerment and growth. Through her own personal journey with depression, chronic personal injuries, wellness, professional, and many more, she's learned that the only way we can grow is to heal ourselves first. This conversation is to tell you it's time to create the life you've dreamed of. To show a business owner that you could have it all. You could have success, you could be rich, you could be a great community leader, and you could be authentic to yourself and still show yourself compassion. Ready to do this and get started? Let's meet our wonderful guest, Hannah, as she shares her story. Meet Hannah. Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself, Hannah Welsh. As I said in my introduction, today's conversation is one I think you must listen to. Listen to the whole conversation because you will learn a lot from this conversation. We talk about pain, we talk about overcoming, and we talk about business success. My guest, Hannah, will be sharing her story. How are you, Hannah?
Yeah, I'm really good today. Thank you. So excited for our conversation.
I'm excited as well. I mean, your bio is truly phenomenal. You've done a lot and you've been through so much challenges, but you've never, ever, let that stop you. People talk, when they talk about you, they talk about the evolve and empower. I think you're someone that likes to keep evolving. You like to empower others because you realize that it doesn't stop with you, that whatever you've been through, you have to help others to overcome that. Before we get started, Hannah, who are you?
Who am I?
Yes.
Oh, such a good question. Work-wise, I'm an Instagram and business coach, particularly working with spiritual entrepreneurs, people who are open to healing and the spiritual world. But really at the end, like when it comes down to it, at the crux, I'm just somebody who really loves to share the good and the not so good in the hopes that it helps other people, because naturally when things don't quite go so well in life, we don't want to talk about it because it's been painful. And I find it not only cathartic for me, but just getting responses from people, whether it's friends, family members, or, people online. It just feels so great to know that you're having a positive impact when you're sharing something that wasn't so great for you.
Absolutely. What was your childhood like when you were growing up?
It was actually really solid. Like, I was very fortunate, quite privileged, went to a good school. However, with that came parents who didn't really know how to communicate how they loved me. And as an adult now, I can totally appreciate, like, my parents definitely loved me. I was loved, but as a child, I didn't feel it. And I do think that a lot of my mental health issues and a lot of just what I've been through in life has come from that particular, I don't want to say problem, but that particular story. And, you know, I've spoken about it with both my parents, but yeah, I didn't feel loved when I was a child, even though on like a material, financial, safety level, I had everything.
You know, I like what you just said, that you didn't feel love as a child, because as myself as a mother, I always ask myself, am I doing enough by just buying things? What can I do better to make sure my daughter, my son understands that I do love them? And then I think it's a question that always in our mind, because where's that balancing out? How do you communicate? How do you, we always think that if we work too hard, we could compensate by buying toys, or we could do these things. So in your mind, if you're to do a talk about it, what message would you give to other parents out there to help them understand, what does a child really need?
From my perspective, as somebody who didn't feel loved, it's words of affirmation. I wasn't really told, that I remember anyway, a lot, that I was loved or cared about. And touch, like I don't remember being cuddled, I don't remember being hugged. Whereas, as you say, both of my parents were career driven, which I think is part of why I'm so career driven, which I love. But because of that, I was with a lot of childminders all the time, and I think I didn't have as much physical connection or the verbal thing. Like my mum really struggled to tell me how she felt, and she's definitely getting better now as an adult. But if you've got younger children, I think even if they're like, stop saying that, mum, or like, still tell them that you love them, because they will feel it.
It's lovely. That's very nice that you shared that bit, because I think so many parents would love to hear that, especially in today's busy world.
Yeah.
We're all so busy. We're trying to just inflation, people just trying to make ends meet. And when that process of going through trying to make ends meet, you forget what's truly important is that
So valid.
it's not even about what you give them, it's about what you say to them and how you touch and make them feel this, make them hugging them, striking their faces. You are the best person out there, and I truly appreciate you. So I'm really glad you started off like that, and I hope people listening will get to hear this very crucial part of it. You said when you first started, feelings, you always had this feeling you were not quite good enough. Where did that feeling start from?
I think probably at school. Like, I was very tall, I was very lanky. I have ginger hair, which is something that quite a lot of kids just tend to get made fun of. And I wonder if the mix of, it started when I was very young, and I was also a bit socially awkward. I mean, I'm an only child, which I think definitely ties in with that, because the way that you socialize is very different. I didn't have a lot of like kids around me after school, for example. And I think only children are probably more common now, just because the fact that women tend to be having children a little bit older and things like that. But I do think that it was probably a combination of the lack of verbal communication from my parents, as well as just a bit of teasing and potentially bullying at school. And it wasn't anything bad, it wasn't anything physical, but I think for me the connection comes with when I wasn't hearing "you're loved" from a parent, and I was hearing not so nice words. Like, it's the verbal thing for me that's quite a big part of my life in general. That was probably where that stemmed from. And then you just carry it with it as you grow up, don't you? And then that's what happens.
So how did this prevent you from moving forward in life? Because a lot of people, when things happen, like when they have this stereotypes affiliated with them, that almost sticks with you. Because I remember my days growing up, people always used to say, describe me as the very skinny one, and that always stuck with me. I'm like, oh, what can I do to put on weight? Oh my God, what do I need to eat? And it just stuck with me. And at one point, I just had to realize that I'm never going to be like that. This is who I am, and I need to accept myself. How did you find just it in you to move forward in life from everything?
That's a good question. A really big pivotal moment in my life was when I had to have a few knee surgeries when I was about, must have been 20 and 23. And I couldn't walk for about 3 to 4 months post surgery. And I think just having the time of not being able to use my body, because for women especially, and probably for men as well, our body is a very obvious thing that we can complain about or not be happy with. Like even you just mentioned being labeled the skinny one, like the aesthetic element is probably one of the most obvious things that we pick ourselves apart with. And so for me, when I had this really major injury that had been ongoing for years and never been properly diagnosed, and then it finally did, and I had to have this surgery where I couldn't walk, and the healing that happened, and my body just, I realized it was amazing. And I think it was that initial like clarity of, wow, I have this body that I live in, it's really fantastic, it does this amazing thing for me, it's healing itself. And I also was really determined to be able to walk again properly. I remember my physiotherapist saying, Hannah, if you don't do your exercises, you'll have a limp. And that can cause, it's not even like how you look, but it causes lots of spinal issues and things like that with your hips. So I was so determined to, like, first of all, be able to walk, be able to run. I was thinking about like my future children, my future grandchildren. So the mental thing of like, I just really want to make sure that I can move my body. I'm also quite an active person in general. And then also the gratitude of having and seeing this process of healing right in front of my eyes, even though it wasn't like a serious illness or anything, was really profound for me actually. And although I fell into kind of like, I would say, my first element of depression during the time when I couldn't walk, because as you can imagine, like not being able to do anything for yourself is quite hard. That was really the first drop in the ocean for me in terms of motivation, moving forwards, and diving a little bit deeper into who I was. I think for many women in particular, self-love of the body is kind of your first layer to learning to love yourself on deeper sheaths, as it were.
That's really amazing how a chronic pain through injury got you to reset your mindset.
Yeah.
You think about, okay, if my body's going through this, how do I change my outlook on life? Like how you looked on it, the outlook of life became different. But now when you became, you found yourself in a better place, right? What disciplined behavior, once the healing took place and everything was fine, you now found yourself, you're mentally understood, this is how the world works, this is how my body works. What disciplined behaviors did you have to follow to prevent that mental pain from coming back? Because that's serious. You have to really work hard on that.
Yes, there are so many things. And I feel like even now, it still interjects a lot. I think the voice of you can't do this, or you're not good enough, or you're going to fail, doesn't really ever fully go away. You just get kind of better at having a conversation with it and seeing it for what it is, as not being the truth. For me, a really big understanding was having awareness that it's a self-protection method as well. And I learned a lot of this through yoga, because of if I go back to my knee surgery, I couldn't do the same things that I was doing afterward, like before, after the surgery. So yoga became a really big practice for me, and not just the physical element, but the philosophy, the mindfulness, the mental side of it. And then I did my yoga teacher training. So I think that really opened me up to the idea of your ego, and the fact that every negative or not so great action that we take is usually a form of self-protection, even though quite often it leads to self-sabotage. And I think just having that awareness and being able to kind of zoom out and have a more macro view of the behaviors that I was doing, whether it was I was being like needy or like gossipy or rude to somebody or whatever it might have been, or like, lazy. It was just really interesting, and it took me a long time to understand that. A lot of meditation, a lot of journaling. I do a lot of yoga still. I do something called rebirthing breath work, which is quite profound. So I think it's just these different modalities, which some of you who might be watching or listening thinking I have no idea what rebirthing breathwork is, but I think for me it was just like whatever I felt helped, I continued to do. And one thing that really makes a difference, just like a tiny saying that my friend said to me not so long ago, like I have this really good friend who's the kind of woman that goes for a run when she says she's going to do it. She goes to the gym 4 times a week without fail. She eats super healthily. And I just kind of thought that she was a superhuman. And she said to me, she's like, no, I don't want to do it sometimes, but I always say to myself, the me in half an hour is going to be so glad that I did that. And although I've heard that so many times, for whatever reason, the moment that she said it, I was just like, yeah. So now if I don't want to get out of bed, or I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to do the work that I've decided that I'm going to do, I just have that conversation with myself. I'm like, Hannah, in an hour, you're going to be so pleased that you did that. And it's not going to take much effort. Like, why are we putting it off? So I think I've just said loads of different things, but having an understanding of why you're probably avoiding doing it, first of all, self-protection, potentially. And then also acknowledging that the future you is going to be really pleased that you did it. I hope that that made sense. I didn't go off on too many tangents.
That makes sense. I love what you said. The bed belts, the you in an hour would be much grateful that you did it. And a lot of people don't see it that way, because I've never thought about it that way, actually. And for you saying it to me, and now it just makes sense. So I'm sure other people listening, well, that will make sense to them, because a lot of time we procrastinate, we want to do things, but we keep oh, we'll leave it today, we'll do it tomorrow, or we'll do it in an hour. We do, we can never stick to things because we're always afraid of our own shadow. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But when you just make that commitment and say to yourself, you know what, I'm doing it. I'm sticking to a routine and sticking to it. And no matter how hard that is, the you in an hour will be definitely proud of yourself. And I love it coming from you that you just re-emphasize that. Now you focus a lot on this personal growth. You help businesses, your business growth, and you help them on empowering themselves in their life, in their businesses. Why did you just divert on that path for business wise?
It was so random how it happened. Actually, I was before, I've done so many things. I've been a translator, I've been a personal trainer, a yoga teacher, I've managed yoga studios. And just pre-COVID, I was a social media manager and an empowerment coach. So I was working mostly with women who were self-sabotaging or had a lack of confidence. And I was enjoying that. It just didn't feel quite aligned. Something felt a bit off, but at the time I didn't really notice it. It was just like not feeling 100% fulfilled, I suppose. But I was really enjoying all the content creation side of things with the social media, and then like actually working with people and helping them, because there are so many tools that I had personally used that had helped me become more confident, that helped me, I used to live in Indonesia and Bali, and that like had helped me to move there and things like that. So I really wanted to help other people do the same. And then when COVID hit, I lost the job where I was doing that coaching. I lost most of my social media clients because Bali is a touristic island. And when the tourists don't come, they don't need the social media managers. So I came back to the UK just to be with my mum during lockdown, because she lives by herself. And I just kind of started thinking, instead of doing it for people, I should be coaching people on how to utilize social media for their businesses, which sounds very strategic and very planny and very like masculine energy. But actually so much of that is confidence, because it's less about people not wanting to do the work. It's more about people just being scared to show up. So, and I think that women in particular, like it's not our like female ancestors up until like 2 generations ago probably weren't working. And I just think it's very like a lot of women don't have a lot of role models to look up to who are working and who are like smashing it in the business world. And I would just love for there to be more female entrepreneurs out there and, making money so that they can invest in other businesses. And it just would be so great if, more marginalized people, whether it's women or people of color or whatever, could have a space in the CEO world, which at the moment is very white, very cis, very heterosexual, very male.
No, I love it. And you posted a quote, which I read, And I was so fascinated about it because you said in 2020, I lost everything.
Mm,
And I was only making, I was now down to £500 a month. And that didn't keep me down. I didn't
yeah.
stay there. I decided to reverse things and get myself back up. How did you do that? Because a lot of people were asking the questions because a lot of people who lost everything are, some of them are still there. How did you manage to move things around?
It was a case of I didn't have another choice, in all honesty. And I would say that I was very fortunate that I don't have any children. I didn't have a mortgage to pay or anything like that. So I would say that in a way, I was very lucky that although I was down to like £500 a month from this one client, my outgoings were minimal. And I'm really fortunate that I was like staying with my mum during that period. But I just was like, I don't know, there was something lit inside of me that just felt it's like now or never.
Yes.
And I, what I was, it kind of aligned. And part of it was me and part of it was luck and timing, because everybody started to go online as soon as COVID hit. Like, let's talk about Zoom that we're using right now. Pre-COVID, nobody really knew what Zoom was, and they'd been around for 10 years. And then bang, like they really profited off of the pandemic. And I feel like in a way I did as well. I was just really fortunate that what I was teaching was just extremely relevant to like a really large group of people. And because I share so openly on my social media, I already had a community who were kind of like ready to go.
That's really fascinating because you share so openly. You talk about your personal struggles. A lot of people would share, but they will not put details of how actually I made this amount or I'm living with this amount. They probably just say, yeah, I lost everything and I'm living on a lower bit. But you were so open, and that I think that was why this is why people find that confidence in you. So from a deep personal learning, how have you translated it into helping out and empowering others to really help themselves?
It is that openness, I think, and that vulnerability that is the key component, because the key to transforming when you're working with people, like helping people change their lives, is the relatability factor, I think. And there are so many, very wealthy people and that we look up to, whether it's on like TV shows or in magazines, celebs and things like that. There isn't a relatability factor, not because they wouldn't be relatable, but because either they don't choose to show it or they're just on a different level. And I just happen to think that it just happened that my struggles, which I was just very open about in great detail, as you said, I never really thought about that, just happened to resonate with a lot of people. And people don't hear that because it is hard to share the not so good things. Like, you want to celebrate your wins and you want to celebrate the house that you're buying, or you're having a baby or you're getting married or whatever it might be. You want to celebrate all those positives, but it's quite difficult to share the negative and also share in a way that's inspirational. Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes you share and it's more like, I'm going through this and it's so awful and blah, blah, blah. And like, that can be quite triggering. Whereas if you've come through it,
yes,
when you're out the other end, then it's inspiring. So I think people connect with me because I seem normal, like, and obviously normal is so subjective, but to the people that I work with, they're like, she's like me. So if she can do that, then I totally can too, which I really do think is the truth. A lot of people who are in the same industry as me will have an Instagram full of like cash everywhere, like there's one really well-known influencer who, like, a lot of her photos are her in a bath of cash, which is cool, but a lot of people might look, or in a private jet, but a lot of people might just look at that and think that doesn't seem within my realm. Yes, exactly.
That's it. And then it's nice to look at, but is that my real life? Because at the end of the day, when you put the phone down, you have to still be in your real life. And it's better that when you look at things, you also can relate it, put it in a perspective of where your real life is, so your mental health could still be stable, rather than look at something and feel, oh my God, I'm really depressed. I have to ask you about this, your online community, because you talk a lot very passionately about them and how you've helped them build brand and tell them about your story. Yeah, how do you empower people or organization to achieve that great happiness? Because I think one of the things missing in today's world is that mental health. Our mental health is very unstable, like we just talked previously. So how would you tell the story about why mental health is very important in your community when you talk to your community?
Because so many people feel not good, so many people feel low, lots of people have anxiety, low mood, depression. And that's the thing that really holds you back, because when it comes to those particular illnesses, and obviously there are much more extreme mental illnesses that people have, it messes with your hormones. Then you're not doing things, like you're not going to achieve your dreams because your body's out of sync. And I think mental health is spoken about on a very, I want to say fluffy, but that's quite that's a bit of an offensive word, but spoken about in kind of like a cloudy way of like improve your mental health because you'll feel better. Whereas one of the reasons that it's so important is because if you want to get stuff done and you want to achieve some goals, you need to be in a good physical, mental space. So I think really simple things that people don't tend to think about are eating well. And I don't want to like tell people that you can't have treats and stuff. No, you totally can. But eating just a really varied diet of proper food with the, chocolate when you want it, pizza when you want it, a drink if you drink when you want it. Like the importance of having a healthy gut with your brain is paramount, but we don't want to make those connections. So for me, it's going to the gym, like going to the gym a few times a week, moving my body, saying what I'm grateful for every morning. Gratitude is probably one of my biggest things. It's like we all have things, no matter where you are in life, we all have things that we're grateful for. So I would say talking to somebody, having a friend who supports you, eating well, moving your body, and being grateful every day. Like those are the things that I'd speak about the most. And when you're in that space of feeling good, then you're going to start doing the things that you want to do. I don't know if I answered your question, but
yeah, I love that gratitude bit because that's something I also live by. I say I'm just grateful to be alive. And once you're grateful to be alive, you conquer anything. I just said to people, I'm alive. So that's enough. I'm just grateful to be able to take this oxygen in and breathe out the carbon dioxide. That is a big blessing to me. And it gives me the energy to feel and to go out there and conquer the world and do whatever I have to do. So you really did answer the question. Finally, before I let you go, Hannah, I have to ask you, what is your message of hope to individuals that may not have the confidence to trust that they're worthy of love and growth?
The way that you feel right now, first of all, isn't fact. I think emotions and actual evidence can get mixed up a lot. But if you do the work, and it doesn't have to be crazy stuff like rebirthing breath work where you were like, what the hell did she just say? It's the simple things: prioritizing yourself, eat well, move your body, get some fresh air, follow people that really inspire you, whether it's on social media or whether it's like reading books by people that inspire you. And if anybody doesn't inspire you, remove them from your life, and then that will just slowly allow you to come up. And then, like me, 6 months ago I was in a really low depression. Now I feel great. I feel like I'm on top of the world, and that's because I've done those little things. And it's been a slow step-by-step process, but you'll just have a day where you wake up and you'll suddenly be like, oh my goodness, this is such a good day. I feel so good. And that's why you're doing all those things.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Hannah, for this conversation. I really appreciate your time, and keep doing your work and keep shining for the rest of the world to see how great you are. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.